First, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. Thank you so much. And then I want to apologize in advance. What I'm going to say is just about literature. So it's really low, much lower than the high scientific level of this very interesting paper. So, when we read literature, when we read novels, when we watch plays, we are interested very often in the action, what happens. At least I'm interested in what happens, for instance, if they will marry at the end or something. And in order to define an action, just to describe an action, to understand what it means to do something, there is somebody else talking around, saying exactly what I'm saying. Really strange. We need to understand at the same time the relationship between the character and a certain amount of ideals and norms that guide them. For instance, I don't know how many of you read Pamela by Richardson. It's a novel in which a virtuous servant is sort of pursued by a stupid master who is very morally incompetent and wants to rape her. He is sort of in love with her, he claims. And little by little she trains him to understand what he's doing and reach a certain amount, a certain kind of moral level, and at the end they marry. So in order to understand Pamela, it is not enough to say this man tries to sleep with her and she's resisting. It's not enough. We need to describe their actions, relating them to certain moral norms or ideals that guide them. And the fact that he doesn't have these guiding ideals is interesting, and also what is interesting that he adopts her moral ideals and norms that guide her by being deeply impressed when he reads her diary, her letters to her parents. So in a way, if we look at our actions, if we look at literary characters acting, if we look at that, we see that when they advance, when they act, they pursue certain ends, okay? But at the same time, they are guided by some metaphorically higher values, norms, ideals. And it is a little bit like a navigator in the old world, a navigator who, in order to find out the position of the ship, had to look at towards the horizon, but also at the North Star. Okay. Now, it seems to me that if we look at literature in this way, we realize that it emphasizes a lot these abstract ideals and norms. And the features, the habits, virtues, vices that are acquired in our interaction with these norms, ideals, values. And it seems to me that if we reflect a little bit about this notion of mimesis. Mimesis is not just simply imitating and describing in great detail the furniture and describing the nose and the ears and the way Balzac does, although he does it very well, very well. But it's not just this. Mimesis is not just simply about the appearances. Mimesis is also about imitating well and precisely these guiding elements, these ideals, these norms, these values. And I'll give you an example of I know that you'll despise it. It's about a character that I hope you know what I'm talking about. It's Princess Leia. I must say that I've never met anybody who looks like Princess Leia or wears this kind of stuff, Princess Leia. Okay? And I don't really think in my life or in the life of anybody I know, anything that happened to Princess Leia happened to anybody. Okay? Do I recognize exactly what Princess Leia is about? Yes, I do. I do because Princess Leia is about courage, determination, and so on. The mimesis is very successful not because it imitates my life or the life of the people I know, or the life of people in the 19th century, or the life of people who live long, long, long after us. No, it is in a faraway galaxy. It's not because of that. It is because it imitates well, it evokes well this other level. And the same thing is true for, we could take many, many other examples. And the task of evoking these ideals, norms, values is a difficult task because the writers have to make a decision whether to emphasize a value, let's say intelligence and purity. Intelligence and purity. If you want to read a book in which the main character is intelligent and pure, it's a huge penguin book, 1,500 pages, a big formula. It's called Clarissa by Richardson. It's a great, great book. I'm old enough to have finished it. And the last third is the best, okay? But very, very few people. I know one person who, I doesn't know one person who finished it, but I'm sure there are other people. And it's clearly an idealization. It's clear Clarissa is a highly idealized character. So here Richardson makes the choice of idealizing the character or representing these ideals sort of in a maximal way, giving Clarissa as a maximally adapted example for these ideas. Or you can do what, let's say, Defoe does in Moll Flanders and even more in Roxana, present characters who do not take these values, ideals, and norms into account. They are just constantly doing the opposite. Okay? And sometimes they realize it, and they don't understand why they are doing. Moll Flanders sometimes she doesn't understand why she has money, she's okay, and she goes on stealing, and she doesn't understand why, and she thinks that the devil is pushing her so opposed to the idealist approach, you have the anti-idealist approach in literature that many people call realist, but realism is something slightly different. So I want to conclude this section by saying, it is sort of, I would like to talk to Plato if he's around, and say art does not offer us only appearances, because this is one of the critiques that Socrates formulated at some point in the Republic. Art is not good because it just shows us the appearance of a bed. They select a bed there. God creates the pattern of the bed. The bed makers imitate this pattern, and the artist imitates only the appearance of the. No, in the novels, in narrative fiction, in literature, art offers us more than just the appearance. In fact, the appearances are often selected in order to make us think better about the ideals, the norms, the values that guide these people. Now, do these guiding ideals, norms, and so on belong to the social contract or not? To the general will? As some thinkers would have said long ago. And my answer is not really. Not really. Very, very often what happens in literature is the representation of a tension between the ideals and norms that guide society and the ideals and norms that guide the individual. And there is a tension between social requirements and individual ideals. And they are very visible in the old novels, in Heliodorus, in all this literature which presents strong individuals, strong souls, as I call them, in a book that will come out this spring. These strong souls are capable to resist any kind of ordeals because they are guided by this kind of what could be called these shiny stars. Okay. Even later in Balzac, you find in the 19th century you find these kind of characters. In a way, Oliver Twist is one of these characters. Dickens is full of this type of characters. Also, they are called realists for some reason. In the 20th century literature, you have this play that I personally like a lot, the Rhinoceros by Ionesco, in which everybody in the community follows this impulse of becoming an animal, and there is only one person, Béranger, the main character, who resists. He's the only one who won't become a rhinoceros. Then, if we don't look necessarily and only at the social requirement, should we look at the moral psychology? Maybe moral psychology will offer us some understanding of what happens in literature. For instance, emphasizing on what the individual feels, and there are at least two kinds of moral psychology. One version is the serene version. And I'm thinking here of this beautiful book by Adam Smith, his first book, the Theory of Moral Sentiments. In which sympathy and interaction with the people around us is the main motivator of our moral feelings. Or there are the pessimistic, dramatic moral psychologists, people like Pascal, and later people like Heidegger. And I must say that going a little bit faster towards the conclusion is that Heidegger almost saw something very, very important. And he was prevented, it seems to me that he was prevented by drawing all the conclusions of one of the very, very interesting insights is that he was just limited by phenomenology. Because phenomenologists look at what they feel inside. And he understood, among others, that care, Sorge, cura in Latin, is a very important element of our existence. We are, to translate it in a more active way, I would borrow an expression from Harry Frankfurter. We are caring beings. We are caring beings. And as you know, bioethics used a lot this notion. We are caring beings in a sense that we saw last night somebody didn't feel well, and immediately a few people were around the person who didn't feel well. And I'll give you an example. It's not from literature, unfortunately, so you can reject it. You are alone in a room with a crying baby. I mean, if you are a Kantian, I don't completely understand your attitude. If you are a Kantian, you say, here is a crying baby. Do I want to live in a world in which no individual who sees a crying baby does anything. Or I want to live in a world in which every single individual who sees a crying baby will give him the bottle. I want to live in the second type of world. Therefore, I will give him a bottle. Okay. It seems to me that, in fact, you just go and give him a bottle. You don't go at all. You see, you have to do it, because if not, the kid will cry. Okay? There are moments in which you just feel that it falls on you to do certain things. And it is in this particular sense that I use the term incumbency, that you so kindly integrated in your beautiful talk. It falls on me to do something. It is incumbent on me to do something. And indeed, there is no reason. You don't have the time to reason anyway, but even if you try to reason, it's obscure. You don't know exactly why you are. With the baby, you know, it's an easy example, but it's a little bit like a silent call. It's a little bit like a silent call. And I will give you a couple of literary examples, because writers started to think about these issues a little bit later. My examples are from the 19th century. I don't know if you saw this beautiful movie, Les Miserables. It's a very serious story, in which Jean Valjean just takes care of this girl and devotes his whole life and doesn't do anything else than to take care of Cosette, and she's not his daughter. Why does he do this? It is incumbent, he feels in a way that cannot be completely expressed, and what he expresses is not convincing. He has to do that, and he does it. He does it. It has this silent, he has to protect this child. It's not his daughter, but by the very fact that he protects her, it becomes his. This is an important point. I will come back in. Then, those of you who are really strong and patient read The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. Beautiful book. About this woman, a young woman, Isabel Archer, a strong, wealthy woman, who has a couple of nice people, nice suitors, and instead of marrying them, she marries this idiot, a sailor in Italy, who just, an American living in Italy, who just simply needs her money. And the marriage is arranged by him and a French lady, Mademoiselle Merle, who was, we found out later, his former mistress and so on. And this man, we understand later, she is very disappointed. She realizes that she made a big mistake. She also understands that he has a daughter who is about 13, 14, a daughter from his previous relationship with this Madame Merle. And he doesn't like his daughter. Because they are in Rome, he puts her in a convent. The daughter is very unhappy. And in a typically Henry James in a very discreet way, you realize that Isabel Archer starts to feel responsible for this daughter. She feels somehow that it's incumbent upon her to take care of this. And you remember that she has to go to London for family reasons, and there one of her former suitors tells her to divorce this failure, this kind of loser, and marry him. A successful. But she goes back to Rome. And Henry James is the kind of author who doesn't necessarily tell you why things happen, and makes you think why things happen. And it happens probably because she promised this girl that she will be back. She will be back. Okay? And in a way, this girl becomes hers. And it's not a, there is a kind of a mine. Yours, his, hers, which is not a mine of possession. It's not a mine of, you are mine not because I possess you. You are mine because I'm responsible for you. Because you are mine because I care for you. Because I have to take care of you. It's a mine of care. So to conclude about this, Josh asked me, if you would like me to say a word about the unity of the self. And I would also add something about the life as a work of art. If we, I don't know much about the unity of the self because my self is completely federalized and they don't listen to each other. It's just terrible. But if one wants to unify the self and if one wants to live one's life as a work of art, it seems to me that one of the things that has to be done is to try to coordinate in some way our ability to look at these shiny stars of the ideals, values, norms, and these silent calls of the incumbents. Thank you.